Hi everybody, it's Tatiana and this is Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This is the story of Alejandra, who is a bruja who does not want to be a bruja, and in an attempt to get rid of her bruja magic, she gets rid of her entire family. The novel takes place in Brooklyn, New York, and it follows the story of Alejandra, but also her entire family, who are brujas and brujos, which are Mexican, Hispanic witches. But they don't like being called witches. When you call them a witch, they get offended. So they're brujas and brujos. I enjoyed the story as it follows Alejandra in her sharing some of her past and how she's gotten to the point of not liking her magical powers, trying to hide her magical powers, the differences between herself and her two sisters, as well as her mother, the effect that she feels that this magic has had on her family. She sees all of it as negatives as opposed to seeing any of the positives about it. And then when she does this thing that's supposed to get rid of her magic and make her life better, of course you get rid of your entire family by accident. That's not something that makes your life better. And so she has to go on a quest basically to find her family and restore them to their rightful place. One of the things that I kept hearing in my head as I was reading this novel is a line that, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm spacing on her name. Stockard Channing's character in Practical Magic says to Sandra Bullock's character when shit hits the fan because they've done this spell to fix something that they screwed up, and she says, you can't turn your nose up at something, you know, for all of these years and then expect that you're going to jump in and know what you're doing, basically. That's my horrible paraphrasing of it, but that's what I kept hearing in my head over and over again as I was reading this story in relationship to Ale. I like what Cordova has done in this story, and she's created her own world, but it is based off of some other legends from some other things. I don't want to say what it's like based on if you haven't read it, because I didn't know that that's where it was going, and that's kind of a spoiler. But once I figured out what it was like, what she was doing with the story, I knew for the most part what was going to happen. There were very few other surprises in the story. What I did enjoy was how she did what she did. So even though the story became predictable once I figured that out, I still enjoyed the route that the story took and what you had to read and experience through Alejandra's eyes in order to get that to happen. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that's what we're going with because I have a very limited time to get this review done. Having said all of that, there were some things as far as the composition of the story that kind of annoyed me, and it had absolutely nothing, I don't think, to do with Cordova. It had more to do with her editors. I am not a fan of spell check editing because it does not catch it when words are actually words, but they don't go in the sentence. And I feel like I'm nitpicking and saying it, but it's something that I see so often in novels, and I often look over. One of my favorite novels is littered. I mean, there are so many typos in The Ties That Bind by Brenda Jackson. I literally said in one of my rereads that I was going to just take a highlighter and highlight every typo the second or third time that I read it and send it to her, because I'm like, who are you having to edit this shit? Can I get their money? Because I just edited it for you. But there were some instances in the story of like breath versus breathe. Like, I can't breath. No, the word is breathe. There should be an E on the end of that. There was a for when it should have been from. There was one sentence where it was this and what was meant was his, and for some reason a T got tacked onto it. There were like missing pronouns where instead of it saying he got his That was going to sound really, really bad. Let me think about that again. He got his cup and took a drink from it. It would say, he got cup and took a drink from it. And it's like one of those things that as you're reading it, you read it like it's supposed to be, but you see that it isn't what it's supposed to be, and it's like a hiccup in the middle of when you're talking to somebody, and you just hiccup repeatedly and can't finish what you're saying. That's what it was like in reading those errors in the story. And then there was also one issue, and I didn't really notice it until the very end of the story when reading one of the characters' names, and I'm trying to figure out how this name is supposed to be pronounced, because there is not a single accent on any name or any word of Spanish origin in this story. And granted, I only took 3 years of Spanish, and I am not fluent whatsoever, but I do know and understand that in order to know when there's a 4-syllable word that's somebody's name, in order to know which syllable to stress or which vowel to stress to say the name correctly, that's important. And when I realized when I got to like the last 20 pages of the book, and this person's name didn't have an accent anywhere, I was like, I don't even know how to fucking read this. So that kind of bugged me, and that's when it clicked that there were no accents anywhere in the story. And if it's not supposed to be, if you've read this story and you are of Spanish origin and there is not supposed to be an accent in the name that starts with an O towards the end of this novel, and you know how the name is supposed to be said, find a way to put that in the comments below so that can stop bugging me, because it's still bugging me, and I finished this yesterday. So outside of that, though, I really did enjoy the novel. I will be continuing with the series. I do want to know what happens next, even though what happened in this story was kind of predictable once I figured out where Cordova was going with the storyline. There are a lot of routes that she can take at this point, from this point forward, as far as how the story goes from here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next, and that's all that I have for that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of me, subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a good weekend whenever you see this video. Peace out.